Now I have also a great privilege to introduce to you Kazim Ali, who I've even tonight not officially met, but who has been, when I was 19 years old and in Nikki Finney's class, Kazim was one of those lights ahead saying, "This is how you do it." He is a brilliant light, poet, translator, and surely one of the best heads of hair in all of poetry. Please welcome Kazim.
Someone always asks me, "Where are you from?" And I want to say a body is a body of matter flung from all corners of the universe, and I am a patriot of breath, of sin, of the endless clamor out the window. But what I say is, I am from nowhere, which is also a convenience, a kind of lie. When I was sitting in the Mumbai airport this January on a 40-hour layover rushing home, because my mother had had a stroke and could not speak anymore, I wondered about my words. Perhaps I am from my words, because the basic biography is ordinary. Born in Croydon, England, to a mother and a father who on different sides of a national border were married in wartime and had to reunite in England because it was the only place they could both get to. Born at home, 76 Bingham Street, midwifed, not doctored, into the world. Taken back to India when the war was over, where I came into language, and of the 7 that were spoken in the house I was brought up in, I began speaking 4 of them as the same. Then to the cold Canadian north we went, to a town that no longer exists on the other side of Cross Lake from the Indians who lost everything because of the dam my father was helping to build. Then to Winnipeg, then to New York City, then to Buffalo, which I guess I can claim. I can say I am from Buffalo because it is a city of poets, the city of Lucille Clifton. I arrived there in cold January to find my mother a little slowed down, but still self-possessed enough to cook meals for everyone in the house, even if she didn't remember the names of all the spices she was using. She does talk by the time I arrive, but slowly and deliberately, and she has to listen very carefully to be able to respond. She pauses while she talks and cocks her head while she thinks. She does not criticize me nor say anything about my wild hair. And our ordinary silences do not seem as suffocating because I wait patiently while she strains the air to find each word. And what on earth could it possibly mean that I almost like my mother better this way? When my mother went to her medical appointment, I got out my copy of Good Woman and combed through its lines to find the addresses of the houses that Lucille lived and grew up in. I climb into the car with a map and a journal, and I drive through the snow to find those places and take photographs of the empty lots where the houses once stood. Listen, I have no answer to your question. I am not kidding when I tell you I earned my own voice. The shape it makes in the world holds me. I have no hometown, no mother tongue. I have not been a good son. Thank you. Thank you. I felt inspired by Rebecca's reading. Actually, this was not one of my planned poems that I was going to read, but I felt inspired by Rebecca's reading to read you this poem. It's called Yanis Ritsos, and it is addressed to that great poet. And it is about the incident that happened in when the Palestinian leadership, which had previously been living in Beirut, fled Beirut after the Israeli air shelling and attack of 1982. They fled to Athens, where they were given asylum, and from Athens they dispersed across the globe. But Yanis Ritsos went to the airport and to wait for Mahmoud Darwish. So this poem is sort of about that incident, and it closes with the first and last meeting between Mahmoud Darwish and his American translator Fadi Judah, and it describes their first and last meeting. Yanis Ritsos, and the epigraph is from Darwish. Athens was welcoming to those who had come from the sea. Yanis, you held him in the glare of the diamonded sea, unteaching him his practical mantra of liberation, seeing in him a son who could take care of you in your loneliness varnished by your detention in the house made of flower stems that thrust through the rocks of the prison yard, its roof made of the unscannable lines of rain. You revealed to him the sound of the rusty hinged door, how it would swing sadly open and reveal no homeland beyond at all. He came from the sea, dragging his anklets of keys. Did you teach him then how all the old locks and houses of his hometown were already broken? Yanis, in the end, he rinsed the last of the coast road's dust from his body, after a lifetime of pressing his language into lines of poetry and prayer and prestidigitation, tired of praising mosques in which he could not pray. The same morning I was forbidden by the guard to pray at the Mosque of Cordoba, Darwish woke up in Houston, Texas, and went to a mall food court to meet for the first and last time his translator. The words they spoke to one another were the same words I read in the stone fragments on the floor of the archaeological dig at Medinat al-Sehra, the ruined capital of the West looking east toward the cities left behind. That city had remained buried in a field for 1,000 years. The palace and throne room had been torn apart, the rubble of the mosaics now being painstakingly reassembled, piece by piece, unlike the villages of Palestine disassembled down to the stone. Yanis, what did you say to him that blue afternoon when the stone canoe landed and he arrived in another place that would be home and not home? In Cordoba, meanwhile, the story of his death flashed across the morning news, scrolling across the screen from clay to nothing. But let's let the sea have the last word, the sea he crossed to come to you, or the one that sparkled off the coast of Chile while he in Neruda's house remembered you, or the sea that rained lightly down as the poet and his translator huddled together over cheap mall coffee to converse in Texas, of all places, though it could have been Athens or Palestine or Neruda's house, at least as good as any mosque in the world, so long as there was coffee and poetry and the sound of rain. Rain in the shape of the river, rain in the shape of a broken lock, rain in the shape of long since written verses, while the translator of lost homelands makes from the sound of butterfly wings rain in the shape of the dark furnace of days. Thank you. You can clap if you feel like it. Let it out, let it out. That's how we do it. Okay. If you've ever been to like a poetry reading in a South Asian community, or like a movie in a black neighborhood, you know that the audiences talk back. So I'm going to close with a poem called Apasmara Climbs to the Mountain Lake. And Apasmara is the dwarf of ignorance, quote unquote, in Hindu mythology. The dancing Shiva with the ring of flames, he's actually on top of this little dwarf who's hunching down. He cannot be killed, because if he's killed, then ignorance would leave the world, and then there would be no struggle towards knowledge, and we can't have that. So he's kept alive in his suffering by Shiva. And so I imagine him as a young a man in Hawaii, of course, because even dwarfs go on vacation. And he's climbing to the mountain lake. And thank you, I will close with this. First at the shore, the water so blue it disappears into the afternoon of my eye. I am marked by flowers. My body, a boat that seeks to cross the wide reach of it, abandoned by those who accompanied me. My old fear of depths returns, and I wonder, how long divided by valley and springfall will I be allowed to stay here, ungoverned, but thrilled by light and salt? I turn up the rock trail to seek the long lauded gorge all the others were permitted to climb to long ago. As I hop the stile to follow, I look back to the beach and can see small figures moving. Was that how I too was seen? Having never thought to climb before, this matter feels not unimportant but irrelevant. After all, the shape one's body makes in the ocean cannot be mapped. But here on the trail, I hold close all my failures, that I am always afraid of being unloved, that I am the stupidest person I know, that I do not call my mother, that I forgot my sunscreen. There is always in the back of my mind the blue blank of my old hometown, long since claimed back into the Canadian wilderness, and all the hometowns before and after I never claimed, never found a home in. The current of the world buffets us. We cannot be still. The deeper we go, the calmer. But always I stay here where the breadth of the depth comes in and the undertow wants to drag me back out. The well of the deep wants us. The deep life, sex, God, death, it wants us. Land, like the body, has a shape that cannot be seen and known, but what I know about my own body is almost all wrong. It's a flowering plum that decorates my arm in bright pink, not a cherry like everyone always tries to sell me on. Can I be entered? Can the ocean make me? Can the flower know me when I am already written down in gunfire and criminal code, the seeds of next year already in the ground? Remember, the phenomenal sun unfurls, and neither map nor molecule I am battered. This fractal coastline extrapolated from patterns of moss on a tree, or the electron sonic path. Yes, I know sonic is wrong. I'm no scientist, but I have a song. It vibrates neither in 7 tones nor 12, but in all the space in between. Usually thought of only as a whine or a hum. Water tumbles down now from the ridge into the icy mountain lake. Tumbles not without pattern, but in fulfillment of Shiva's dance. Entropy, which is chaos of order, unspeakable. I heard the painter of waterfalls once say she does not utilize craft or technique, but rather makes a decision, and so perhaps God is a little bit like that. Lo is a lawman. God chooses colors and canvases, and then the day, like paint, poured from the top and allowed to fall uncommanded. Still, supposedly, the universe wields its laws. A body must fall. Water may not stay in the same state. Rain follows physics, opera, sonnets, songbox to the quantum point of etc. or who gives a fuck. Look it, chance, liquid, and gravity are hardly the type of gods a boy would want to put much faith in, but in my case, those were the only ones who would accept me into their worship. They said, light every candle, cross your fingers, stake your claim to being the dumbest thing that ever lived. Oh, but wow, I should be so lucky, because unless I can release every line ever inked, how will the new ocean ever be able to enter and know me? I'm no beautiful thing. Most days I can hardly stand up straight and breathe. My whole time in this earth has ground down to this degradation, that even in this poor, unloved body, in these stark days, even abandoned I seek height. Even while you are opening and entering me, killing me, I am too much of a brute to get the hint. Water screams down from the ridge into the gorge. Equations scatter in a spangle of flower light, ground down into ignorance and death. My cheek against the sticky rock, God's foot between my shoulder blades, pressing all the air out of me, my blood freezing in the shock of the mountain pool and burning in shame for not being able to muscle up and rise, crushed by every element invented. Yet I will not relinquish this ignorant, ugly shape. I rage I snarl, I want this life.